Did you know that in Germany, there's 3 types of home insurance? Chances are, if you're like most expats, or at least like me, you didn't even know there was one and haven't taken the time to protect your belongings or your home. By the end of today's video, you'll know exactly which of the 3 types of home insurance you want to be looking into, which ones are a waste of your time and of your money. But before we get started, hi, my name is Theo. I'm from Feather. We're a digital insurance company who help people who have moved abroad make sure that they have all of their insurance needs in check. On this channel, we break down complex insurance questions and topics like admin or bureaucracy when you're moving to a new country that might not be so easy to figure out on your own, especially when you're not speaking the local language. So we do it all in English. We break down insurance and other admin topics for you here on this channel. And with that out of the way, let's start today's video. As I was saying, home insurance in Germany can be very confusing because there's 3 types and people are going to give you conflicting information. So I'm hoping this can be the definitive resource for you guys trying to figure out what is it exactly that I need to protect my home and my stuff. There's good news. It's that regardless of the policy that you end up having to pick, it's generally going to be pretty cheap, something like 3 to 8 euros a month, though like the most premium policies can of course be more expensive than you typically see in the price range that I just gave you. But there's also bad news, is that it's super easy to get wrong, especially if you don't watch until the end of this video. You might end up paying for months or even a year for a policy that's not protecting the right things, and you would only find out if the worst happens and you need to file a claim and you realize the thing that you were expecting was covered was not. As I was saying, there's 3 different types of home insurance here in Germany. The first one is contents insurance, or household contents insurance. It has quite a few different names, but it's just about protecting your belongings. Think if you're gonna switch your apartment upside down, what is gonna fall? Generally speaking, those things are going to be covered by contents insurance. The second one is buildings insurance. So here, buildings insurance is protecting the structure of your home, right? The walls, the roofs, this kind of stuff. And then the final insurance that you're going to have for your home is going to be homeowner's liability insurance. So that's in case someone gets hurt on your property, you're covered. But now that you know the 3 main types, let's just go through each one of them so that you have a better idea what's going on and which one might make most sense for you. There's a reason that I was mentioning contents insurance first. It's because it's the most critical piece of insurance that you really want to get, because it's applicable to both landlords and renters. And so that's the one we're going to be discussing first. And we're discussing this one first because it covers all of your belongings. As I was saying, turn your home or apartment upside down, everything that falls is generally covered. So that means things like your sofa, your clothes, your gaming PC, whatever it may be. It's covered. But what is it covered against? So it's going to be covered against a few different events, things like burglaries, thefts, fires, hail. You might also get floods. So if any of your belongings get stolen or damaged by these kind of events, then your insurance kicks in and you don't have to replace everything through your own pocket. The insurance will give you enough money to replace what has been stolen, which is really wonderful. You don't have to end up spending, thousands or tens of thousands of euros replacing your belongings. In my mind, it's tremendous value because the typical household contents insurance costs maybe 5 euros a month, maybe 20 bucks a month at most, when you're looking at, the top tier coverage for a very large amount of protected value in the tens or hundreds of thousands of euros. And that's the most popular policy here in Germany that I would recommend every single person to get if you own more than, say, a suitcase worth of stuff. The second insurance type that I was mentioning is buildings insurance. Buildings insurance is also helpful, but to a much smaller population, I would say. That's because buildings insurance is helpful for homeowners only. Because as a homeowner, you need to protect, the integrity of your home, the structure of your home. Things like the walls, the roof, the ceiling, the built-in bathrooms. In case something bad happens, unforeseen, nature does its thing and somehow damages your home, things like fire, storms, hails, water damage. If the structure of the building is damaged, buildings insurance is going to be the one that makes sure that you don't have to be paying out of pocket to make sure the repairs are done properly. Your insurance takes care of it. In fact, it doesn't take care of it, it takes care of the cost of the repair. You still have to be the one organizing the repairs in some cases. But if you're a renter, the great news is that you don't have to worry about that. The landlord typically has it, and if they don't have it, they're going to get in a lot of trouble. So you don't have to stress if you're a renter about your building's insurance. If you're in the process of buying a home and you're looking to get a mortgage, your bank is most likely going to require you to show proof of buildings insurance, because the downside of not having buildings insurance is so huge that it can put a lot of homeowners bankrupt. The third and final type of home insurance is homeowner's liability insurance, or property liability insurance, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's for whenever someone else gets hurt inside of your home or property. Say someone slips on the floor in your bathroom and breaks their arm, if one of your flower pots falls from the balcony and damages a car, or even if there's ice on your sidewalk and somebody slips and again hurts themselves, you're the one who has to pay for the damages in these cases. And so that's when homeowner's liability insurance comes in and ensures you're not the one left holding the bag. Again, this is going to be useful only for homeowners and not necessarily for renters. In fact, homeowners are typically required to have this kind of policy because the downside can be really astronomous when you think about, worst case scenarios. You can end up being liable for a lot of damages, and most people are not going to be able to pay for this kinds of damages, which is why typically it's legally required for anyone renting their place to someone else. That's well and good, what each insurance does, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the chase. What do you really need? If you're renting, you only need contents insurance. If you're a homeowner, you need contents insurance, homeowner's liability insurance, as well as buildings insurance. And if you own your property and you're renting it out, in this case, what you want to do is have buildings insurance as well as homeowner's liability insurance. Since contents insurance is the policy that 99% of you are going to need, let's deep dive a little bit into it. I mentioned a few examples of when it would kick in, but let's go through the full list. You'll have to forgive me, it's a long list. So there's going to be fire, lightning, explosions, storm, hail, water damage. This one's a bit murky because in some cases you're going to have your buildings insurance cover it, and at least your landlord's buildings insurance. But if things like a burst pipe in your apartment happens under your sink and it damages your belongings, that would be one of the cases in which you're going to get covered. If you're in doubt, just reach out to your insurance company. They're super used to it and we'll be able to tell you what insurance takes priority in your case. Next is any theft or burglaries. In this case, you're going to get covered. If you have any borrowed items in your home that are not actually yours, but get damaged by one of the events that I was mentioning earlier, in those cases, you're covered. And then the final sort of event that gets covered is any temporary accommodations. Let's take the example of the leak, right? You have under your sink a big leak and you haven't noticed because maybe you were awake a couple of days. And now your apartment is uninhabitable. You need to go to the hotel or rent an Airbnb. And that's one of the events that would be covered by your insurance. It's having to find another place to sleep for a few days. All the costs associated with that will be covered. However, contents insurance is not the end-all be-all of coverage. There's definitely going to be things that are not going to be included as part of your coverage, especially when you think about the price of like €5 a month. It's already a pretty good deal what you get. But just to give you, a non-exhaustive list of the kind of things that won't get covered, it's going to be things like wear and tear. That's just, stuff gets old. Sometimes you have to replace it. If you deliberately damage your own belongings, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to cover it. Actually, no insurance company is going to be able to cover it. What else here? On my list, I have items outside of your home. Can be a bit of a murky situation depending on the policy and the add-ons that you buy. So if you're ever in doubt, just contact your insurance company. But as a general rule, if you leave your backpack outside in the park and you lose it, that's on you, not covered by contents insurance policy. Then any negligence, that's typically also sometimes covered, sometimes not covered. Say you leave the candle burning in your apartment and, after some time, something catches on fire. In most cases, the cheapest policies will not cover that because you accidentally caused damage. Though at Feather, at least, there is the possibility to buy an add-on, is what we call them. It's just essentially upgrading your policy to a slightly better coverage for a couple of euros. And there is what we call the negligence add-on. So you can choose to improve your coverage and have those cases like, leaving the candle burning or leaving your stove on covered. It's not helpful for everyone, but you might choose to include it in case you're a little bit clumsy or forgetful like I am. Talking of add-ons, there is maybe 2 or 3 more that I'd like to share with you. So the first one is a bicycle insurance add-on. So here it's going to be very helpful because it's going to be much cheaper than your typical bike insurance policy. It has certain limits. Typically it's going to be 1,000, 1,500 euros worth on your bike. But it can be helpful in case you're trying to save a couple of bucks and not go for a full bike insurance policy. And then the other one is going to be valuable limits. So contents insurance typically has some limits on certain very specific items like cash or jewelry or antiques, artwork. In those cases, when you have items that have a really high value, there's going to be a limit to maybe 2,500 euros being reimbursed for cash stolen. But for some people, that's not enough, and they choose to look into add-ons or improved coverage to increase those limits to 10,000 euros in cash being reimbursed. In some cases, it might make sense to you, but if you're not an art collector or not the kind of person that keeps 10 bands under their bed, you might choose to ignore that. Now that you know exactly the kind of coverage you want to be looking at, or at least what makes a good policy, let's talk a little bit about how much you can expect to pay. I already gave you a 3 to 8 euros range, but that's a bit of a lie because it can be, going up to 30 euros a month, depending on the kind of policy you're looking into, because there's 4 primary cost factors. So one of them is the size of your apartment, because the size of your apartment is going to roughly dictate the value of the belongings inside of it. So, a bigger apartment means more stuff, means a higher premium. Then number 2 is going to be the location of your apartment, or I'm saying apartment, but it also means your home, right? So the location of your home and or apartment. In these cases, there's cities that are safer than others in terms of theft. So Berlin, unfortunately, is a little bit more prone to burglaries than others. Then there's also going to be some areas that are more at risk of flooding than others. And so you can see where I'm going with this, where the area in which you live can either increase or reduce the risk that you pose to an insurer, and thus will also impact your final quote. Next is whether or not you want those improved add-ons that I was talking about, things like your bike cover or your negligence. That's yet another reason why you might cost more money to your insurer or increase the likelihood of costing money to your insurer. And one of the reasons you'll see a difference in your quotes when you decide to select those add-ons. And there's one final area that can actually reduce the price or your quote of contents insurance, and that's whether or not you have certain security measures in place. So things like having security cameras or maybe a smoke detector can help to bring down the cost, because here you're reducing the likelihood of costing money to your insurer. With all of those things in mind, you can expect to pay, at least with Feather, for, let's say, an apartment in central Berlin with, say, 70,000 or 60,000 euros worth of coverage. That's good for like a 100-meter square apartment, generally speaking. You're going to be expecting to pay either 100 euros per year for the most affordable policy or plan, up to 140 euros a month for our best plan with the most amount of coverage. Contents insurance is not mandatory, but it can really help your application in case you're struggling to find an apartment to rent. I know I struggled too when I was living in Berlin. Now let me run through some rapid fire questions that we keep getting at Feather from some of you people. So first of all, is home insurance mandatory? So as I was saying in the beginning, only 1 or 2 types of home insurance are mandatory, and those are buildings insurance and homeowners liability insurance. And so those are mandatory for homeowners and not for renters. As a renter, you don't have a mandatory home insurance, though it's common sense, or at least I would like to think it is, to get contents insurance because it's a really good protection for a really low price. In fact, a lot of insurers actually lose money on this policy, and they try and get you through the door and get you to like them by selling you a really affordable policy. I would say it's one of the top 3 or 4 policies that I recommend getting in Germany, but definitely first look into liability insurance and health insurance. The second question we get all the time at Feather is, how do you make a claim? Here, to make a claim, at least with Feather, what you need is to log into the app, the Feather app. You scroll down to your policies, you look for household insurance, you click there, there's a big button that says file a claim. But what you need here is then going to be laid out on the page. Depending on the type of event that happened, you might need different documents. So say there was a theft at your home, you're definitely going to need a police report. So it's written on the app. If you have any questions, there's also a, contact support button right there, and we'll get back to you pretty quickly. We would advise that you file your claim as soon as possible, even if you don't have yet all of the right documents, just so that we can start a conversation and see if there's any way that we can help you. And also, maybe you don't want to throw any damaged items just yet, or at least take as many photos as you can of these damaged items for documentation purposes. It's always helpful. The third question we get all the time at Feather is whether or not you can cancel anytime. Answer is, it depends. At Feather, at least, yes, you can cancel anytime, effective at the end of the month, but a lot of insurance companies will in fact try and lure you with really low prices, and then it turns out you can only cancel on a yearly basis. So those are the kinds of policies I would stay away from personally, but if you know for a fact that you need to be optimizing your insurance budget and you know that you're going to be here for the next 12 months and that you'll remember when to cancel, 12 months in advance, then those might be the policies for you. And the last thing you need to know about home insurance is that I'm going to leave a link in the description to Feather's contents insurance. In my mind, it's one of the best policies out there, top-rated support, English support also. It doesn't happen everywhere here in Germany. But if for whatever reason you don't want to buy from Feather, I'm also going to leave a link to our ranking of the top policies here in Germany. And then you can choose for yourself what is it that you really want out of your policy. But to give you a quick recap, then if you are renting your apartment, all you need is contents insurance. And if you are owning your apartment, you've purchased it or you purchased your home, then you also need beyond contents insurance, buildings insurance, as well as property liability insurance. All right. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.